introduce Joe Maidenberg from Current TV. Current has been with Box since even I first started back in the fall of 2009 and grew from a very small deployment to a very large one. And Joe has some interesting features that he'd like to choose on their Current TV's approach to use case of Box. So,
sure. All right. Cool. Thanks.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Thank you so much for picking one of my favorite TV commentators, Joe.
Is that Cenk or Keith?
Keith.
Right on. Well, if you like Keith, you'll like Cenk too.
Okay.
He should be launching in a couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been with Current for about 6 years now, and part of my job is designing and implementing our workflows that deal with handling media. And when I was listening to the speakers this morning, it occurred to me how much our experience of deploying Box really resonated with a lot of the new cloud paradigm things that are happening. When I heard from Jessica that, oh, this BoxWorks, you should come and speak, I was like, yeah, I'm really excited. We did something really cool. And then as I went to put together my PowerPoint, I was like, gee, what we did was so simple. Like, I didn't develop a Red Bull app, which was cool. We just did a few little things, but I think it's kind of indicative of where we're going, as IT professionals with cloud services. So this is just sort of a little story of how we got what I would call, double-clicked it, MAM in 60 seconds. And, it actually took more like a week or two to actually get the service fully up and running that we conceived of. But the speed at which, relative to the normal kind of IT process of scope it, think about it, invite people in, do rounds of requirements, it felt like 60 seconds because our opportunity cost with Box was so low. So when we think about putting together systems for workflows, I always have to remember that there's 3 parts to every system. There's the hardware, the software, and the meatware. And the kind of concept of calling it meatware, right? That's us. That's the humans. It kind of reminds me, like, yeah, that's an equally important part to deal with. The gentleman who was presenting before me says, got questions like, how was the application development? He was like, easy. Well, what was the hard part? Well, people didn't know what Wi-Fi was. So one of the things that kind of impressed on us when we went to work with this project was that the kind of cloud nature of Box removed the hardware component entirely from the effort, left us more time to focus on the software and on the meatware. The other piece from this morning's presentation, which was 100% reflected in our experience, was that this was very much, in essence, a kind of consumer-led effort. Like, I wish I could be up here, Mr. Smarty Pants, kind of IT VP, being like, well, look what I brought to the table. I solved all these problems that our users had, but actually this is 100% wrong. This was started as a rogue service on someone's credit card in the marketing department, and IT didn't even find out about it for weeks, months. And I think it was credit to kind of Current's forward thinkingness that we weren't like, squish, use our in-house clunky, FTP server-like service that we had previously been using. And rather, we said, oh, okay, all right, guys, thanks for bringing that to our attention. We'll take a look. And actually, I think with this particular MAM implementation, we brought what is good for IT professionals to bring to the table, namely, hey, here's a little bit of discipline, a little bit of best practice. And we read the manual, I think, a little bit more deeply than our sales guys did. And we're able to activate and use some features to ensure that this was a sustainable kind of practice. So let's get to it. Talking about the problem space kind of very quickly. What is Current? We make and sell TV programming. We have a lot of video and rich media in our sales presentations. We're selling programs that aren't on the air yet. we're customizing things where we're like, hey, Pepsi, what if it said Pepsi right here? We like to visualize that. So there's a lot of collateral being created and a lot of stuff flying around. The who is a collaboration, a traditional collaboration between creative services teams who are making this collateral and tweaking the collateral, and the sales teams who are interfacing that with the actual clients out there in the world. The where is our sort of shockingly diverse geography for a relatively small company. There are about 400 Carentians globally. We have creative services in LA, approvers in San Francisco, some marketing in San Francisco, lots of sales in New York. Some of the people who need to approve are in New York. Everyone is everywhere. It's not easy to kind of run things through like, all right, everyone get in a meeting, let's approve this. And we needed to trade on the small and nimble, and Current has the kind of problem that many startups have, namely we haven't reached maturity on every single piece of technology that we have. There are lots of things where if it comes down to a choice between improve the intranet and launch Keith Olbermann, like, well, we just have to be like, sorry, intranet, Keith Olbermann now. And we didn't have the time to go through a whole big MAM scope, to say nothing of figuring out what the price would be and seeing if we could afford it and so on and so forth. So the when is a kind of need it yesterday thing. Like we're already rolling already. And the how was we made use of Box to do this. Now, relative to one of these sort of full-feature media asset management systems which attempt to embrace in the kind of old-style enterprise way everything from, hey, I have a creative brief, to I'm helping your editors manage their full-res media, to we're pushing it into a kind of shareable situation, to we're tracking how your sharers shared. We kind of broke this into pieces. We already had some working workflows for dealing with full-res media, for transcoding that to a kind of compact enough form to be able to share over the kind of consumer internet, such as would be found at kind of edges or could be reasonably expected of any recipient of a link to have. But what we really were missing and what we used Box for was that application, that last mile sharing application between the sales group and their clients. So prior to Box, the kind of instrument that was used for this, and this shows, relatively speaking, how Current's a new company. Oh, we use DVDs and not VHS cassettes, right? But even that relied on FedEx, and what wasn't quite as snappy or changeable, customizable. So what did we do? We used Box in the two ways that it kind of naturally presents itself. One as a cloud-based file system, and the other as a way to share stuff within that file system. And here's where the kind of IT sauce was nice to have. We said, all right, listen, based on the information flow that's taking place here, we want to make sure that we have only a single librarian putting content into this system. That's what makes it officially approved. We've also had a lot of experience with kind of file-based media workflows, which differ greatly from kind of physical tape and physical item-based media workflows. And this is one of these things where the magic of computers and then the kind of compounded magic of cloud computing, get away from the basic instincts that people have, right? If I handed you a videotape and it was clean, had a typewritten label, had a big orange sticker on the side that said master, you would probably be like, oh, ooh, important, must hold on to this. But if I show you a file in a file system, could be named anything, and there's no stickers there, right? Like you could go through a whole rigmarole of kind of custom icons in your file system, but nobody does that. So what we've discovered is, at least until file systems become that intelligent to have kind of context about, well, how important, how labeled is this thing, and very visually quickly, naming convention is really the way to go. In fact, we actively encourage people who are working on works in progress, name it crappy. Name it like, Jimmy's draft. Use all lowercase letters. But when it comes time to create a master, title, case, only underscores, no funny characters, and that helps people understand, like, hey, this file, this is the real deal. Because, of course, the last thing we wanted to do was to put out, yesterday's logo on some particular item or another. So, in essence, like the simplicity of just adding a little bit of workflow and a little bit of rigor kind of did it for us. But, and you would think, actually, that, given that we wanted to add this rigor, that we would fall on kind of one side or another of what I've discovered talking to other users is the kind of major litmus test in box philosophy. Right? Are you anarchists or communists? Do you check the little box that says, allow only admins, members of the ruling elite, to create root-level folders? In other words, do you think of the organizing principle of your box as it's a cloud-based file system? Because it sure looks like a file system, right? You got some folders and subfolders, and the folders are hierarchical. When in fact it's really not. It's a website, right? Can do anything you want it to. Or do you say, hey, each person has their own cloud-based file system, their own sandbox in which to play? Given that we originally adopted Box not so much as a place to store stuff, we actually had lots of places to store stuff and had even done a pretty good job of kind of drilling into our users, like, yeah, here's where you mount your local file shares, and here's how you do this and that. We really used it as the place where the enterprise client barrier was permeated. To say, hey, I have this stuff. I need to share it with you from PepsiCo, and you from Sony, and you from whatever, to be able to get things out quickly. So we opted for the anarchy approach. However, for the officially approved marketing assets folder, we needed to kind of revert to some of that top-down approach in order to keep it from becoming a collaboration space. It's not a collaboration space in the sense that other box folders are like, oh, hey, give me the thing, I'll give you the thing. This is a kind of one-way approach. So luckily, there are features within Box that allow you to exercise some measure of control. You can set individual permissions for your collaborators, and you can set at the very tip-top level of any folder the ability to disable the sharing links for that folder. But wait, Joe, I thought you just said the whole idea was that we wanted people to share the marketing assets, and not keep them together. Well, yes, but we wanted sharing, but not shared sharing. Right? This is where the cloud magic allows you to be in two places at once type problem, which was confusing. And this was really the biggest thing that we needed to kind of get into everyone's head. We said, listen, here's the workflow. I know it sounds crazy. The workflow is you go to the traditional sort of file system looking, yet cloud-based, good on your mobile connections, and always in the same spot and easy to get to and much prettier looking than than Windows, and allows you to have some comments in there. And you need to download that material and then re-upload it to your individual Box.net account, where then you share it from you. Because otherwise, what happens is these wonderful streams that are so useful to the sales group activity, right? Who watched that? When did they watch it? Did they watch it, just after I emailed it? Did they wait until the weekend? Did they watch it 11 times? Did I see one IP hit, and then 2 more, and then 4 more? That sounds good, right? That sounds like Bob was like, oh, Jim, check it out. Jim was like, oh man, I got to get these other guys involved. So, it gives them just that that kind of intel that they need in order to be the the sneakiest and most effective salespeople that they possibly can be. And so that's the kind of rubric that we set up, where we wanted to make sure that the sharing was individual, even though the assets themselves were shared, and the system was flexible enough to allow us to do that. And that's basically the story. Happy to answer questions if you have them. I think I've got plenty of time. I talk fast.
Do you have any trouble getting your clients to participate? Do your clients come in and onto your box and participate?
Sure, yeah, all the links, generally speaking, the links that are the most sent around are ones to videos which preview right there in the page. So prior to this, we had an in-house grown system which had a great product name and was otherwise pretty clunky and awful. We called it Send a Link, as in, I want to send a link to this video to someone. Because the one thing we learned, like, imagine the people who've come up here today to kind of talk about how brave they were to train their teams of people who kind of couldn't get how to use an iPad or what have you. Imagine how difficult that is to do with your clients who are never wrong, no matter how inept they are. You need it to be just super simple. So, Send a Link kind of worked. Like, there were these links, but they weren't navigable. You couldn't send a folder's worth of links. They were FTP-ish, so they looked like the kind of like it looks like it led you into this very bare bones, like undifferentiated type text, no thumbnails looking web page, like ugh. Whereas with the box.net, if you set up your sharing links, you could set it up with a password. Sometimes actually the password is good because it's sort of like, well, this isn't released yet, but I'm going to send you the password, right? And we also can, auto expire links if there is stuff that we're like, ooh, we only want that to exist for a week. But generally speaking, almost every client was like, oh yeah, that worked. Click, page loads, video, oh, play, great. And we pre-encoded all our videos to Flash ahead of time to make sure that they look good and presented well in the player. And actually, we're kind of excited. I don't know, am I allowed to make product announcements? Probably not. There's this cool new video preview feature that lets you upload other kinds of video, and it does a server-side transcode to make it so that you get a preview, even if it's a QuickTime movie or a WMV. For us, it was easy. We already had a lot of transcoding capability, and we wanted to optimize as much as possible. But that's very handy for us as well. Yep.
So I forget what you called your golden folder, but the one where it's the final assets.
Officially approved marketing assets.
Right.
Say, is that officially approved? Yes.
So is that only shared with the internal people by them logging into their box account?
Yes. Yes. Sharing links are disabled for everyone in that folder. So normally you go to box.net and you can see it says share, no share.
So you just added everybody
Yeah.
in your company as a collaborator or as a
Just the sales and marketing teams who really care about it. Anyone who wanted to could have access though. Mm-hmm. It's I think we share it with a group, and then whenever new folks are onboarded, we add them to the group, and then they're automatically part of it.
Right.
It's so simple, right? It's like, oh, just set up a folder and tell people how to use it. I was almost sort of like, gee, can I make a whole presentation out of this? But the kind of profound part was we were able to just be like, hey, does this work? Oh yeah, it works. All right, well, let's use it. And the other thing is, again, there's 68 people sharing this folder. I don't know, how much training do we do? Maybe 3 minutes with some key stakeholders. And we're like, do it like this. And they're like, okay. Oh, the easiest ever. They get it. So that was really nice. Yeah, it doesn't do everything a super comprehensive man would do, but the value added while we would have been waiting to scope the other thing will add up to beat the original end goal value of the big, expensive, comprehensive thing, which would be a pain in the ass to maintain anyway. You know, I don't know if they're still using that to kind of hang on to stuff. This has really kind of taken over in terms of where does the stuff come from. We had the rogue user in question was a guy named Danny Green, who was Jessica's original contact, and then later on we kind of shoved him out of the way. We're like, we're the admins of this service, please. He just sort of kind of he went rogue. He's like, all right, I'm going to set up my own thing, and he did a perfectly good job. That's kind of the new paradigm. I think we could have felt very threatened by this development, but I think the kind of going back to this question of like, oh, if you remove that hardware part and you can really concentrate on what works for people, you get a much better success, and people love it. It's very popular, even though it doesn't create system administrator jobs. It creates kind of interesting, business analyst, business helper-outer jobs. I don't know. We need a new title, I think. Uber Boxer, yes. Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right.